Hey everybody, Scott here. Hope you're having a great day. I owe everybody an apology. When I started this series on our City Heights Marlboro development, promised that I would regularly post, and I haven't posted in about 6 months. And there's a couple reasons for that. One of them is just that not a lot has happened. We've been stuck in the city. However, there have been some developments that I want to bring you up to speed on. Main reason for not posting is we had a flood at our house. We had to move into a temporary home, which is where we are now, and everything's jammed. As you can kind of tell behind me, I'm sharing an office with my wife and three dogs that are laying around, so excuse the noise if you hear that. But I also, in trying to get some of the appliances out of the house so we could do the repair, had a trip and fall accident that gave me a bruised rib, concussion, and separated shoulder, and turns out also a hip problem that developed later. That was in November. Been able to focus really well. In fact, we taped two different episodes where I just forgot to hit play. We were all set up. We did a recording, and then I went to edit it and had never hit play. So kind of tells you where my head was. In fact, on this video that you're going to see here, Shane, who is our architect, he also taped it just in case, which is a good thing because while I taped it, I taped the wrong screen. So there has been a bit that has gone on, and in this video, we're going to bring you up to date on where we are now as of the end of April. And in a nutshell, we took an extra month to get into the city. Then the city came back with some comments, and what was really interesting and good to learn from is that the city didn't know what they were doing, and they caused a major problem. So without further ado, I have edited the summary that Shane and I did, but we'll bring you up to speed real quick as to where we are now. Thanks a lot, and I hope you enjoy it.
Here we are in phase five, right? We're in permitting. We submitted for the permit, and which very typical is in all projects, the city comes back with their comments, move things, add a detail, whatever it may be, and then we resubmit the project, right? Okay, so phase five permitting. So let's just jump into these city comments. So really everything was pretty typical. We only got two major comments that we're discussing, and that's structural comment 11 and 12, and then planning comment number 68. So 68 from the planning department. So the four proposed staircases, and those are those staircases off of the second floor going up to those second floor ADUs, right? Those encroach into the standard 8-foot setback. Unroofed structures and excess of 3 foot opposed above proposed grade are unallowed encroachments. So basically what that means is we have two options here to discuss. We can either enclose that staircase, right, going up to that second floor, and have it enclosed because ADUs are allowed to go within 4 feet of the property line, right? That's their setback for two-story ADUs. Or we can shave off a foot and a half, 16 inches from that side of the building and keep the stairs enclosed. So now on the flip side, I already did the square footage calculations. If we enclose those stairs, we're going to be above that 750 square foot mark.
Right.
And we're going to get hit with impact fees. So best case scenario is shave 16 inches off of the building. It's going to save a little bit of construction costs, not much, and it's going to give a wider access route for egress and some trees and stuff. So talk about that in a little bit. And then the demolition of that existing back structure, they're calling it as new construction. And we talked about this a little bit, but the plan was to leave a 3-foot portion of both of the existing dwelling units and classify them as a remodel. And this is where there is a big gap in training with the city, is because on two other projects, and I didn't tell them about those projects because I didn't want to flag them, right?
Yeah.
But they let us get away with exactly what we're doing. It's classified as a remodel. Then I went to the higher ups and talked about this, and they referred me to an information bulletin, which explained it all. So it's really just a gap in the training, and they had a huge onboarding because it's just everyone wants these ADUs, so they needed to hire more people and get these things out pushed a little faster. And there was a I guess they missed that part of the training. So long story short, we had to do a little redesign there. And then comment 12 was a fire sprinkler. So if we were to go down the route of demolishing those existing dwelling units, we would need to provide fire sprinklers because any new dwelling unit in California is required to have fire sprinklers. So we can demolish them, rebuild them, no problem. But then we'd have to add fire sprinklers. And so if we can get around that regulation, then we can save $50,000-$60,000 on fire sprinklers. So,
Well, and the same was true for solar, I think. Solar
yep,
came in as so kind of just to recap, what happened with the first comment here is we thought that a unenclosed staircase didn't count on a setback and we could get away with that, and they told us no. The bottom one was really the fact that the city doesn't have their act together. They're running too fast, and we were told we could do one thing, and you've done things on other projects. And then they came back and said no, with the result being that if we were to knock down both those buildings, we have to put solar and fire sprinklers in each. The additional cost of the project of about $150,000 to $200,000. So
right.
you
Yeah. So
I'll
go
let
ahead.
you describe the workaround, and I'll give the numbers on why we made the decision we did.
Sounds good. Yeah. And so this fire sprinkler too, like I went to the higher ups and they passed me to an info bulletin. So that fire sprinkler or remodel minor versus major is it's not black and white in the code. There's not a code section that states that. So it's not in the San Diego Municipal Code. It's just an info bulletin. So it's one of their hundreds of info bulletins that they have, and it's one of those things that was missed by a reviewer in the past, but caught by another reviewer. So let's just talk about comment number 68. This is the most straightforward one. This is regarding those stairs. So in an RM11 zone, we have two setbacks. Okay, one side is 5 feet, one side is 8 feet. Okay, but ADUs, on the other hand, they only have a 4 foot setback from side and rear property lines. Okay, but when you go to put egress stairs, they don't count those at, even though they access the ADU, they don't count that as ADU square footage. So they're going to they hit us with this 8 foot required setback on this side property line. And then we just had to shave off. I was actually only 1 foot of the building on one side. And, and then the stairs met that egress or met
Yeah.
the setback.
And then you
So
shifted the foot also.
say that one more time.
You also shifted the building over by a foot to get the rest of the space we needed.
So this was a super easy comment to address. It just needed to be discussed because we did go down from the buildings were originally 749 square feet down to about 730. So shaved off a little bit of square footage there. But other than that, super easy comment to address.
Okay.
This is where it gets a little tricky. So they're calling out as we try to leave these small portions of the existing dwelling units and then this existing back unit. Now it's easy enough to demolish an existing garage. This one was a little bit pushing it going into the project. I knew that for a fact. I thought they were going to buy it though. This 3 foot portion, I was sure that they were going to buy. Basically, what's going on here is they're saying this doesn't classify as a remodel. It's classified as new construction. And when we classify it as new construction, we get hit with solar, we get hit with fire sprinklers. Okay. Now this is the information bulletin that they sent me. So long story short, I went to the higher ups. I talked to the structural head. He's the supervisor, and then I talked to the Gary Geiler. He's the he's like the third guy from the top. So really, really high up guys. And I'm like, hey, where's this gap of training? Because I have these other two projects that are going on, and we got around the fire sprinklers. So where's this gap in training? They're like, oh, it's just a disconnection of interpretation, and they're just trained differently. So when they hired all those guys on, they just said, I'm assuming they told them just to study the municipal code and what's in here goes, but there's also another side of things that is called an info bulletin. So let's just walk through this, and this is where they caught us. Here's where we don't comply. The existing dwelling unit alterations. When an existing dwelling is altered to create two separate dwelling units, with no change in the building's total floor area, sprinklers are required. So this is a little bit of a gray area too, because I would argue that an existing or in a dwelling unit is different from an ADU, because an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. So it's really about terminology here.
Yeah.
Um, Long story short, I didn't win that argument, and they told us we either have one of two options. We can, which is the next slide. So not this one, which is the next slide. We can either keep, right, the 8 total units that we're going for and classify it as all new construction, but now we're going to need to add fire sprinklers and solar. Okay. Or we can go option 2 and we can keep this existing front structure, right? We can totally demolish that second one. And then we have a series of 6 ADUs. So pros on this one, it eliminates fire sprinklers, save construction costs, only 2 affordable units, which is what we were doing anyway. And then we gain 3 feet off the parking because now I can pull these back 3 duplexes forward because this existing dwelling unit isn't as big as these ones. Pull it forward and we gain 3 feet off of the alley. So just it's good for parking, right?
Good. Which is turning out to be pretty important down there. Now,
Yeah.
the reason, so we ended up going with this option, and really the numbers came down to each one of these buildings is going to cost us between 450 and 500,000 to build, and is going to add about 900,000 to $1 million of value to the property. Now, knocking down the front unit and doing that build, we only pick up one additional unit. So it was a case where we'd spend $500,000 and only increase the value for 500,000. So it was kind of a net neutral to begin with, but it just made the property more inviting and it looked better. But when you added the $150,000 to $200,000 additional expense required for the solar and the sprinklers, that made it more sense to keep it like this. Now, we're renovating that front unit because there's a massive tree root that was causing slab problems.
Yeah.
And ended up stripping that thing down to the core. And I've got some pictures I'll post. So let's actually stop here and take a look at this tree issue that we talked about. So here was the property when we purchased it. You can see that huge tree on the right. Here it is after we finally realized we had to take up the slab. So the slab has been completely removed from the property here, and you can see at the far end that root sticking out. And here is that root in more of a close-up picture. Now to see how much was pulled out, this picture here shows you what was pulled out of the house, and you can see it's absolutely monstrous. So that had done major damage to the house, and we were not comfortably going to be able to move forward renting it knowing that was going to continue to do damage to the overall structure. So we fixed it, took it out. So those were the changes we made, and we're expecting feedback in the next couple of weeks. We know there'll be comments, now the comments we get next, do they require a full resubmission or just to one department?
It depends if they're only from one department or if they're from multiple, but it's easy enough just to submit them through the online system and they direct them from there.
Okay.
The intake staff will take them in and then direct them to the appropriate departments.
So now if we're, so let's say it's 2 weeks, so middle of May.
Mm-hmm.
Then we make any changes we have to by the end of May. Another review, maybe we get it back a month or 2 months, you think?
I think they're going to be very minor. The only ones that I'm not worried about, the only ones that could prolong the project are the ones from the housing commission, because it's a little bit, we need to get that deed, we need to submit it and get it back to them, and then they need to prove it. Now, but we couldn't do that on the first submittal because we were changing the
Right.
units, the unit count. So
Okay, so maybe 2 months. So maybe we're looking at end of May, June. So we're probably looking at August for construction.
yeah, I think that's about right.
Okay.
Yep. And yep. So we're all submitted. It's just a matter of when the city can get us back our comments. So
Hurry up and wait. So we'll get with it, and once we get the final reviews back, we'll do another another quick one, and then we'll be on to construction.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Scott.
All
Talk
right.
soon.
All right. Bye.